Just about ready.
Okay.
3, 2, 1.
Well, hello. Welcome back to Great Bend Farm and Ranch Expo here in Great Bend, Kansas. Farm, Ranch, and Hemp Expo. H-E-M-P, Hemp. That's what we're going to talk about today. Got a couple experts here. One comes to us from the southwestern part of the Good Life state to our neighbors to our north in McCook, Nebraska with Wild Ass Soap and Hemp Company. And sitting next to me to my right, beautiful young lady that is with the South Bend Industrial Hemp Company from right here in Great Bend, Kansas, and that is Melissa Nelson. I'm just going to first of all have you, Melissa, maybe you want to start, tell us a little bit about your company, how long you've been doing it, just to give us a little rundown of what you guys have been doing.
Okay, so the short condensed version of South Bend Industrial Hemp. My name is Melissa. I am a crop research scientist. I own my own facility and work with developmental chemicals, varieties, genetic testing, etc. My husband and my brother-in-law are also co-owners of South Bend Industrial Hemp, and they are fourth-generation farmers here in Great Bend. They approached me about starting growing hemp back in 2019, and that was Kansas's first year to grow, and I said, let's do this. Long story short, we started growing for CBD because that was the hot market, but our main focus was fiber and grain. So 2019, we grew for both. 2020, we refined our grow and expanded our fiber and grain because we were focused more as large-scale farmers. We still kept our CBD grow because we have our own CBD line, but our focus was fiber and grain. And now, 2021, we are growers as well as processors and have a fiber processing facility that will open May 1st.
Very good. So you moved your business towards the industrial side of things. We'll come back to that in a minute. Justin, you guys primarily, I would say, CBD type of products, right, with your business?
Right, yeah. So where we started last year in 2020 was we came from the, I guess the love of the cannabis, sativa plant, the CBD world, the cannabis world. It is something that we had, that I had followed for a long time, and I had become a pretty big believer in that plant, the medicinal healing power of the plant, the uses of the plant, and kind of the anti-corporation mindset that I have, that I've kind of developed, and I just felt like a lot of the push that led us away from that plant in the 30s was a lot of corporate lobbying interests, and I just felt like, you know, as a former agronomist, you know, working with my clients, that, you know, we needed more diversification, we needed more freedom to farm and produce what people need and people want. And so I got really excited when it looked like Nebraska was gonna have its own hemp program, and so where we were, you know, I'm excited about everything. Like, I'm really excited about what these guys are doing too, but for our small little hobby farm, you know, little acreage outside of McCook, what we can, you know, feasibly do is what fits right with our passion, and that's the CBD. But we advocate, and we're kind of local cheerleaders for everything, and we try to promote everything that we can. Because I do feel like it's not going to really be economy changing, it's not going to be farm diversification changing if it's just CBD hemp. I mean, there's such small acreages and such small impacts, it's going to have to be the industrial fibers and the seed oils, things like that. And so that's where we started, and that's where we're at right now.
So, as you mentioned, the industrial side is obviously opening up for a lot of more commercialized farming that we're accustomed to. You guys are fully integrated with your products, so you have products at the end that you sell as well.
Yeah, so that's what, you know, when we first started in early 2020, we were following the market, basically the market collapse of biomass pricing towards the end of 2019. And it got to a point where we even second guessed whether we should even go forward with that, because, you know, we knew it needed to be, it needed to be self-sustaining. We couldn't just invest that time and energy into something that was just going to go nowhere. And it needed to be successful so that we could continue to promote the industry. And so that's, you know, initially we thought that we would just be, you know, very small little hemp farmers to kind of get something rooted in Southwest Nebraska. And because of corporations and mergers and things like that, it got to the point where these CBD companies they're basically just big corporations, and they own their own farms, they own their own processing, they own their own lines, things like that. And I just felt like this just sounds so much like what we just talked about with the last gentleman was talking about that I was really interested in. It just seemed more of the same that we're used to, this industrial ag complex where the corporations come in, they take over some industry, and they shut small farmers out. And so we decided that at that point in time that we're going to focus on just being a small CBD hemp farmer. It's basically going to be a farm to table retail product, retail line of products, topicals, edibles, anything we can do ourselves or try to promote. Whether that be hemp bioplastic products or the industrial fiber products, animal bedding, all kinds of things. But we want to keep it small and local. We want local farmers, local families to be able to bring this to our small communities, not go to Denver and California and all the places where the money usually goes.
So Melissa, you guys are in the industrial side of things, which industrial hemp in the 40s was a big part of World War II, something that obviously with legislation stopped for quite a number of years. We're headed in that direction. Tell us a little bit about your farm. How many acres, and then walk us through the process and kind of what you're doing with this industrial hemp that.
Okay, so I'm going to expand a little bit outside of our farm as well. So we do our conventional crops of corn, soy, wheat, milo. We wanted hemp to be a way to diversify our farm and bring another cash crop option. We grew a half of a pivot last year, and in 2019 we did 80 acres of dry land. So we wanted to 2019 was a great learning experience. I wouldn't call it successful in terms of tonnage produced, but I think that's why our 2020 season was so successful, is because we went into the hiccups in 2018. So we put this crop under irrigation just so we could take out one of the factors, the mother nature could throw at us. Had a very successful crop. It was 12 to 14 feet tall. And this year we are growing 150 acres, 40 of that is dry land, the rest is irrigated. But in order to meet our processing facility needs, we need 1,600 acres to go in the ground. So what we've done is we've contracted with local farmers to grow for us. And the reason is we see this, we're trying to think 3 to 5 years down the road. This is an industry that is about to explode. And we wanted farmers to get in and have some skin in the game, but at a level they felt comfortable. They could mitigate the risk a little bit. So some farmers are growing 15 acres for us, some are growing 300 acres for us. It just depended on their level of experience. And we could offer them a contract to give them a place to go. So that way, when the processing facility needs 10,000 acres in 2 or 3 years, I can go to these farmers that have experience and say, please expand your acres and I can give you premium pricing to do that. So we're trying to think long term. We're trying to get other farmers in the game at a level that they can handle it.
Sure. So you guys built a processing facility?
Yeah, just right by the airport.
Okay.
So we're like 2 miles from there.
Your product after that, so it comes in, however it comes in, what's the end result? Where are we headed with it?
Yeah, so farmers are going to bring it to us in round bales. And one thing that I really want to stress in terms of farming, our goal in 2020 was to only use equipment that we already have on the farm. We didn't want to bring anything special, no special plates with our planter or use any special drill settings. We wanted to use only the things that we were already implementing. We harvested with a big draper head for grain, and we brought in just a conventional swather and baler and put it into round bales. From there, it goes to our processing facility, goes through our corrugation machine, and it breaks it into basically 2 pieces. The hurd, which is your inside woody substance of the stalk, and then the fiber, which is, or bast, which is the outside of the plant. And from there, the fiber and bast is going to head to your textiles, your paper mills, prosthetics, that's where your fiber is going to go. your herd is going to be focused more towards hempcrete, insulation, bioplastics, animal bedding. There's a lot of options in terms of the herd.
Gotcha. So it goes on further to be processed into other.
Yeah, I would say it's essentially a 3-step process. You have your farmer, you have your processor, and then you have your final product manufacturer. And so we have taken care of steps 1 and 2. And the reason we did that is it's kind of a chicken and egg situation. No farmers are going to grow if they don't have a place to take it. And no processor is going to come in and put in these facilities and investments if they don't have a consistent supply. So we could answer both of those questions or problems and have a solution.
So have you gone all the way from no oils and any of that, you're not extracted for any of that too? Is that part of the process?
We have our own CBD line. We produce all of our products on our farm, our land to your hand. The only part that we are not fully integrated is we do not do our CBD extraction. We outsource that to another Kansas company just because they're already really good at it, so we didn't have to.
So I'm assuming, and this is a question about the difference between the two. It's different plants that you use for different things primarily, or are you kind of, from my understanding?
Can I do my pepper analogy?
Sure.
I was telling this analogy this morning. How I help people really put this to something they already know. So you're walking into the supermarket, you go to the vegetable section, and you're looking at the peppers. And you've got a bell pepper and a jalapeno pepper. These are 2 very different peppers, okay? Still pepper. You have cannabis. You've got your hemp and you've got your marijuana. These are both cannabis, but they're 2 very different. So within that bell pepper, you now have a green pepper, an orange pepper, and a yellow pepper. So your green pepper is more of your CBD. Your orange pepper is more your fiber. They're still a bell pepper, but they're very different. So that's kind of the best way to visualize that.
So it's fair to say that the separate plants, part of that too is feminized and non, right? I mean, the industrial side, you don't have to be as specific as in Justin's case, where you can't have male plants. They don't like the men in that side of things. Is that correct?
Yes, male toxicity. We can't have males on our place at all. I always, last year I was kind of thinking it'd be cool to have, our CBD plants over here and then have this little hand-planted plot of grain hemp that we can, press for making the hemp seed oil that goes into our own soap. But here's the thing. I mean, I have a picture on my phone somewhere on our website or Facebook page that my neighbor across the road, our little plot is right next to the draw of a big canyon that goes down towards into the Republican River Valley. And I knew there was a lot of feral hemp right across the road, and we were just extraordinarily busy last year and taking care of other business needs and things. So I knew the hemp plants were there. Well, we finally got a weekend off, Labor Day weekend. That was our first weekend off of the whole season. And we came back, and it was really cold and cloudy. And I just got to thinking about those feral males across the road. And I went over there, and they're like 10 feet tall. Most of them have already shot their wad. And I just thought, oh my God, I'm ruined. And I was looking at my flowers, and I started to see the sack starting to swell. And I'm just like, oh my God, I'm ruined. We should have got on this right. I had permission to go over there and destroy. Now, I can't police a 10-mile radius. It never get done. But the funny thing is we went ahead and chopped what males were still left, and some of the females out of anger and vengefulness. But it was a waste of energy, but it was fun anyway with our machetes. So we still had we still had a decent hemp crop. I mean, we still came out with 12% CBD on our biomass and 0.2, 0.4% delta-9 THC. And we even had some of my later flowering plants that we saved for smokable flower. And we went ahead and tried our hand our first time with trimming the flower and cutting it out and curing it. And, it's definitely low shelf flower. It's bottom shelf flower. But it's flower nonetheless, and it had some seeds in it, but it wasn't terrible. I mean, it's still 12% CBD. I mean, I've gotten top shelf flower in my shop before that was 10% CBD. I mean, it was really good, flavorful, aromatic flower, but it wasn't super high on cannabinoids either. So.
Switching gears a little bit, Melissa, local here, and I know we've got bankers in the room around the area. How is that some challenges with that maybe has been financing through these things. How have you guys overcame some of that?
Actually, our community has been phenomenal. When this started and we were looking at opening a CBD line, we went to a community bank. It's now People's Bank of the Midwest. We told them what we wanted to do. They were very progressive. Obviously, we had to jump through quite a few hoops. We had to have our products third-party tested, which we had planned on doing anyway. We have to have that on file and sign the clause saying that they could audit us at any point and just be very transparent. So that was pretty exciting that the community was open to that. In terms of the processing facility, which was quite a bit more significant of a money transaction, we did have to go to a venture capitalist just because they said we were very high risk. I mean, all of our numbers were projections in a new industry, so we were too high risk in terms of that, but they very much support what we're doing. And they said, come back when this industry is more established.
Sure, and that's kind of where I was directing with it. People may be listening or following along a line. It's an industry that, as other agriculture, is fairly easy to go in and get a loan and to do all these types of things. The hemp industry is very new, very young, and there's some legal restraints even behind how that's going to accomplish to get financing. So it's asking that question.
Well, I think the biggest challenge was they asked for, what was it, a comparison study? Yeah, and I'm like, what would you like me to compare this to? Like, we are pioneers. We are paving the way. There is nothing to compare this to. They didn't really like that answer. So,
speaking of regulations and things, with the industrial end, Justin over there, and you guys do CBD as well, there's an amount that you can have that has to have THC. That's the stuff that is illegal in other states like Colorado. On the industrial side of things, do you have to keep it under a certain limit, or is that tested? Is it the same process as CBD?
What do you mean for industrial?
Well, yeah, for industrial.
Well, I believe it is. I mean, I believe your hemp program with your Department of Ag is
you're Nebraska.
Yeah, you're very similar to ours. I mean, any hemp,
Anything.
even if it was, I mean, obviously, if you were growing for grain, you are going to have very, very, very little, if any, CBD and THC, more than likely. I'm sure there's probably still some in different parts of the plant, but you're not going to have a lot of flour or anything like that. So it all has to be tested. Now, I'm guessing, assuming that you're getting good seed, good varieties, things like that, good breeding, if you were growing a grain and fiber crop, you're probably not worried about getting hot. Not like you would with a CBD crop. The CBD plants are the ones that we really have to worry about getting hot.
The genetics are
I assume, and that's my assumption too. I mean, I don't know that from experience. That would be my assumption, but based on the genetics and the breeding.
Well, maybe tell us about the process just in Kansas of your legal side of things, or even how it started. So how many farms, applied for different stuff, and where are we at?
Yeah, so some numbers from the KDA. We talk a lot with the KDA just because they're very excited about what we're doing, and it's exciting that they're supporting us as well, as well as the Kansas Department of Commerce. But in 2019, when this opened up, there was 200 licenses that were issued for hemp. Of those 200, 198 were for CBD. We were one of the 2 that was for the fiber and grain. 2020 rolled around, 220 growers' licenses were submitted. There was about 11 for fiber and grain. As of last week, when I talked to the KDA, there was only 85 grower licenses in the state of Kansas. I do know that 12 of them are for fiber and grain because they are growing for us. I haven't looked at the rest of the numbers. We haven't submitted or made them public yet, but when you're looking at genetics and things like that, CBD and THC really isn't a concern for us, and we need males to produce their own thing. And so it's just really not as much of a threat for us. It is, you have to pay attention, but it's not.
What's the year or two, you talked about 3 to 5 years. How is that industry within the country. I mean, industrial hemp's not anything new. We go to our neighbors north of Canada, it's all over. I mean, every country in South America. What needs to be sustained in your eyes? After you guys have a year to this belt, obviously you've got the processing facility, you're shipping it to get processed into other things. How does that industry grow? Where do you see it going?
Our biggest challenge right now is fulfilling these contracts. Because if Ford devotes a line for hemp production, or if Levi Jeans is devoting a line for hemp production, you have to meet that need. And so being able to handle the volume is going to be critical for this industry to be successful. And I think that is done by creating a network of processors. So that's what we're working on, is helping work together. So for example, when I decorticate a fiber plant, typically 25% is going to fiber, 75% of the plant is going to herb. So with that in mind, you can do the math. And we have a paper mill that has came to us and says, I need 40,000 pounds of fiber per week to meet my demand for hemp paper. Okay, well, that's only 25% of the plant. So where is all this herd going? And maybe you've got a facility up in Indiana that has a lot of fiber production and not so much herd. And so we've got a lot of herd contracts that are waiting to be filled, not so much fiber. So if we can work together to meet those demands of the industry, that's when this is gonna be very successful.
So on the other end, the people that are, like you mentioned, Levi or whatever it is, when we have it, then they're going to be able to be more sustainable with those processes.
Well, because it's an investment for them to switch over machinery and switch over to, if they're in resin or, it's different than a normal plastic, So
I've got a question. So, one of the things that we've talked about at the last few farm shows is you kind of hit on that where you had to go talk to a venture capitalist, and we've talked about that, with the CBD industry. I mean, if it wasn't for with the challenges in the banking and the federal laws and things like that, if it wasn't for the venture capitalists, I don't know how the CBD business would have been, would have been born in Colorado. Because it's these venture capitalists that will come in and they'll buy these warehouses and they'll set up they'll invest in someone to do something that's risky and unproven and brand new. And you had to go through that too. And so one of the things we always talked about at these last few farm shows is like, we have to increase just general consumer demand for these products. Like it's great that we know the benefits of the products and we know the uses of the plant and we know how we can do that, like how you guys are doing that, but I guess there has to be a very serious level of consumer demand. There has to be a reason for the paper mill to need to produce that much hemp paper, or for Levi's to have a hemp line or something. I mean, they're not going to do this as maybe like virtue signaling, but I would think that the business end of these end consumers would be, well, there has to be some consumer demand. So that's what we've been doing always, but lately is trying to tell people like look at what is possible with hemp, demand hemp, start being smarter shoppers, just ask for these things. I mean, if someone sees this, there's a demand there, or this is something that we could switch our machines over to, dedicate for X days a week or X days a month or whatever to that production to fulfill this need that's in the marketplace. Like, because we're still kind of a, consumer-driven world. I mean, it's still kind of capitalism sometimes not, but that's what's going to drive this. So it sounds like there's more consumer demand out there than I was aware of, where you're talking to a paper mill, or you've actually got places coming to you, because you are kind of one of the first. I mean, that's another thing we've talked about, like at the McCook Farm and Ranch show, is the fact that wouldn't that be awesome if there was a venture capitalist that would come out to the tri-state area, Northwest Kansas, Eastern Colorado, Southwest Nebraska, and put in some kind of a facility where we can start doing these things. So I guess my question is, number one, what's the scalability of your, what's the scalability of what you're doing now? You need 1,600 acres of fiber production now? Is it scalable to 10,000, 20,000, 100,000? And then what's the feasibility? Have you looked into like the feasibility of the radius of business that producers? Because you've got some in Nebraska. You know, how far into Nebraska? I mean, how feasible is this going to be?
Okay, you're getting me excited. This is what I love. Our machine can output 1.8 tons per hour. So you can do the math on, and we've done this. Our machine can handle 1,600 acres before we need to put in another decorticator to make that work. And we've already figured out that we don't want more than 2 decorticators per machine, or per facility. We don't want some conglomerate like Panda Biotech or anything like that. We want to create these smaller facilities sprinkled throughout the Midwest every 100 miles and to make it more economical for our farmers. And so being strategic where you place these is going to be very important. I know there's a facility going up in Nebraska. I know there's another facility going up in South Dakota, and there's another facility that we're working with in Indiana. And so being able to sprinkle these throughout the Midwest. Right now, the radius is not ideal. We do have farmers up in Nebraska City and up in Lincoln growing for us, but they want to grow. So they're willing to travel those extra miles. And then we're very blessed that we have a commercial trucking company as well. So we can work with these farmers to essentially use them as a backhaul. And so they can help reduce their transportation costs to get their product down to us. So you're gonna have to be very strategic in how you work this first few years until we've got this network of processors throughout the Midwest.
So as that infrastructure grows, where the rubber meets the road probably for most producers is how much can I make? What's the money that I'm going to make compared to when we put soybeans or corn or wheat in that 160 acre pivot? I mean, what are you finding now? I mean, obviously it's new. It's something we're starting, and as the infrastructure gets better and costs go down and all that type of thing. But where are we at?
That's going to be a very exciting question in 365 days. So we are working a lot with varieties this year on testing on dry land, because being able to replace acres of milo or wheat dry land and not have to cut into irrigated corn and soybean acres is going to make this crop much more viable for a lot of farmers. In 2019, our dry land crop, like I said, wasn't so successful, but that was a lot of our own doing in terms of how we planted it and things like that. Live and learn. So I'm very excited to put these crops in the ground next week, particularly on the dry land side, because I want to see if this is going to be as successful as what we project.
So it would be fair to maybe assume that the dry land, lower input compared to maybe what you could do on a circle with another crop that we're more accustomed to,
right.
money-wise might be
yeah.
a good start.
And we've got all these numbers, and I ran the numbers, and we're still beating corn. We're still beating soybeans on return line per acre. Wheat isn't even a question. We're kicking that out of the ballpark. Milo prices are a little higher, so it's more competitive for irrigated Milo, but we're beating corn and soy.
So, with that, the CBD side of things, where everybody got really excited is because, an acre of ground, people were, when it first was big, we were making 10 to 15,000 an acre, and I got so excited. Everybody wants to jump into these things and that side of things. What would be a comparable number per acre, maybe on an industrial? I mean, knowing that it's more like corn, soybeans, or wheat, milo, whatever it is. In estimate.
I don't think it's really comparable.
Well, if I've got an acre of ground and I want to go out there and put something in it and I want to make money on it,
everybody's acre is different.
Sure.
I think everybody's acre is different, and it depends on where they're at.
Right.
And like in Southwest Nebraska, and I don't know about Central Kansas down here, but I mean in Southwest Nebraska, I think the feasibility of the grain and or fiber hemp is going to be that dry land, because I don't know if it's going to be able to beat out irrigated corn and soybeans, but my neighbors do a pretty good job. They rotate, but there are growing acres in southwest Nebraska of dryland continuous corn. It's the only thing that pencils out, and that and that's sad. I hate to see that. We need the diversification, and so that's what's kind of cool. That but there again, your dryland down here is different than our dryland up there. As far as the rain that we get, the anticipated rain, and so I want to see how well this hemp, the fiber crops are going to do not drought every year, but in difficult conditions, difficult emergent, difficult, germination, difficult emergence situations. That's what I want to see, because I think if it can work, that's going to be huge, because no one can afford to grow wheat anymore. Not in Southwest Nebraska. We cannot afford, not with our property tax rates in Nebraska. You cannot afford to grow wheat, and not many people grow milo anymore either.
And what's wild is the facility up in Indiana. They can't. I mean, they're all dry land. It's because they have black dirt and beautiful rain. So they're all dry land, and they can't get farmers to convert over. And period. It won't pencil, and it can't be corn. So. And they grow corn. That's what they do.
But then how far would you have to truck in? So if you have a processing plant in the middle of Indiana, in the middle of, I think Iowa's still the number one corn growing state. Indiana's maybe number two. I think Nebraska's actually. I just saw these maps 3 days ago. Pretty fascinating. But, that's why I think out here, this is where this network of processing should be for fiber, because like you're right, I don't think those guys in Indiana are going to take their corn and soybeans out of production, because they don't need to. They have black dirt, and they have all the rain they need, sometimes more than that.
Sure. Both of you guys have an agronomy degree or background. Talk about that plant just as a cover crop. How good is that going to be for the soil?
With our soil, we do grid soil sampling, and we noticed that this corn or this crop pulls out a little bit of calcium, like more than what we had expected out of the soil, and a little bit of phosphorus. We irrigate, or we fertilize as it goes irrigated down. We are going to back off our nitrogen rates just a little bit this year. We don't really need a 14-foot plant, especially if we're going in for grain, because that's just more material that we're running through the combine. In terms of cover crop, what we did find that was very interesting is this crop, it continues to come back. Like even with that negative 30 degrees, if you go down to our field right now, it is covered in 4-inch hemp. It's pretty interesting in terms of that. It's almost like alfalfa.
I noticed ours right after Labor Day. We had a sale like 120 days. I was really flowering because we were late last year. We didn't have the best place to start our plants from seed, and we didn't have a greenhouse. And so this year we have a small greenhouse. But last year it's a long story. But we ended up it was our second start is what ended up going to the ground, and it didn't go to the ground until July 25th. So we were still flowering fairly late, and the hemp plants can take some pretty good frost. Even right at flowering, and probably all the way through the life cycle. They're really hard. The frost doesn't hurt them much.
Yeah, Colorado had that snow in September, and we have some farmers out there that grow for grain and fiber, and it popped back up. It was like but it popped back up and harvested good yield.
Very hardy plant, very good. Anybody got any questions? Good question?
Well, actually, I have to highlight this guy.
Oh, okay.
He's with Hemp, right?
Oh, Hemp.
And yes, Hemp Building Company.
Okay.
So basically, they're taking the products that are coming out of our processing facility.
Come on up here, partner. We're going to talk to you.
And he's creating building blocks.
Okay.
And they're actually out of Kansas. Yes. Right? Okay.
Very cool.
We're in Colorado.
Come and have a seat.
Okay.
Jason,
Was I talking to you about we're doing a house in Kansas City? Or
Yeah,
something?
we're in the house.
Yes. Okay.
All right, so tell us your
I
name
do
and
know
your
what I'm
company.
talking
No,
about.
this is great. All right, so tell us your name and what your company is.
My name is Phelan Dalton. My company is Hemp Building Company.
Microphone.
We build out of hempcrete.
Okay.
Hempcrete is pulverized limestone, hemp hurd, and water.
So tell us the process. It comes from like her facility after it's processed, they're bringing it to you. What do you guys do? How does it work?
So we mix the hemp the pulverized lime and the water in a mortar mixer, and we cast it in place. We make blocks and panels, and once those are dried and cured properly, which takes about 4 to 6 weeks, we build around.
Perfect. And then you're selling this to contractors, you're selling this directly to stores, or where does it go from you guys?
So we're still in a bit of an R&D phase. We are also builders. We have contractors on our team. We're building our first house in Oberlin, Kansas.
Closer to you, sorry. No,
We have some property down there.
So you're putting one together. What's the benefits? Why should I do this rather than what we've been doing for the last 30 years?
So hempcrete is naturally pest resistant, mold resistant, and fireproof. Lime is highly alkaline, so it doesn't allow mold growth. Really, it's antimicrobial, antifungal, and it also fire rated. So it doesn't combust, it just burns a hole through it. And then it's also temperature and humidity regulating.
So you guys, the direction you're heading is on the construction side primarily. That's where you want to be going to building houses with this everywhere, right?
Exactly, yeah. So we use the herd for hempcrete, which is essentially an insulation and fill material. And the bast fibers, we can make hemp bat insulation. So it's a very thermal material, thermal mass, low density, great in areas that are
Well, we're probably going to wrap it. Just tell us, first of all, how do they, are you in the retail side of doing stuff? You have a website somewhere we can get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can get a hold of me at hempbuildingcompany.com, hempcore.com, and yeah, we're currently producing bricks and panels right now. But not so much for retail at the moment.
And on the direction and want to get into ground floor and learning how to do it.
Absolutely, and hopefully we can use these guys to
Yeah, and that's the great thing about being here at this show, being able to connect with other people involved in the industry. You hand it to Justin. Justin, tell us how do we get a hold of you?
Yeah, just Facebook at Wild Ass Soap or Wild Ass Hemp Farm. So we've got two different Insta pages.
Melissa, tell us about you're probably recruiting farmers if we can find some more people to plant it, right? What's the best way to reach you and some of that stuff?
Yeah, so start talking to us for the 2022 growing season. We are already fully contracted for 2021. And licenses were due in Kansas by March 15th, so that's really important. Start thinking about your 2022 plan. But you can find us at southbendindustrialhemp.com, and I'm super active on our Facebook page, South Bend Industrial Hemp. I'm always posting educational stuff and just about our growing season.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate all these guys coming up and talking to us. If you're watching online, look them up, find out more information. On behalf of the Great Bend Farm Ranch and Hemp Expo, I'll talk to you in a few.